Hi, I am AI Joe, and either I am a human acting, or I'm the most consistent and perfect AI to ever exist. It's not that difficult to discern that this image has been artificially generated, so I'm definitely not a human acting. Therefore, hi, I am Joe, the most consistent and perfect AI. And here's a short recap of recent cyber news. I will start with Microsoft, a depressed accountant's idea of what a tech giant could look like. Cybersecurity company Trend Micro recently published a report on a Windows vulnerability that Microsoft has been refusing to fix, and the whole situation is quite wild. It's a zero-day that allows executing commands on the victim's device. It was first discovered by the Zero-Day Initiative back in 2024 and reported to Microsoft, only for Microsoft to say that the vulnerability is not serious enough to be addressed. The researchers kept arguing with Microsoft for several months, trying to convince them that the flaw is serious and can easily be exploited by a determined enough threat actor. But Microsoft refused to budge. Fast forward to approximately now. Trend Micro took a closer look at it and discovered that not only is this vulnerability ripe for exploitation, it has been actively exploited for years. The researchers found hundreds of shell link samples that have been tracked to nearly a dozen of threat actors, many of them state-sponsored ones. APTs from North Korea, Iran, Russia, and China have been busy using this particular zero-day for espionage all over the place. Primarily, they've been putting various kinds of malware on the devices of their victims, that is, competing governments, financial institutions, military and defense establishments, and all kinds of private companies. The way Trend Micro found all of that out is quite ingenious, and I recommend taking a look at their original report if you are into that sort of stuff. As always, the links to all of my sources are in the description. Now you might think that it is very irresponsible of Microsoft to ignore such a serious issue. You might even suspect some kind of malice or collusion. But you have to remember, it's Microsoft. Ignoring extremely serious issues that put millions of their users at risk is Microsoft's thing. I wouldn't even be surprised if their executives get off on that sort of stuff. Of course, that is until the issues explode and bite Microsoft right into the buttocks. And what does Microsoft do then? Well, it continues ignoring those issues like it's nothing. But don't worry, there are two ways to protect yourself from this vulnerability. You can check your system for indicators of compromise to know if you've been affected and spied on by North Korea. Or you can fix your Windows machine in a proper way. And now, one more story of high-flying cybercrime. If you regularly watch my videos, as you should, on repeat, 24/7, you've probably seen me reporting on the leaks of Basta, one of the larger ransomware gangs. And the story of those leaks just had a massive twist. Back in February, some disgruntled human randomly posted over 1 million of the gang's internal messages, doxing many of its members and disclosing the full extent of drama that has been taking place among cybercriminals. The scale of the leak was massive, so it took quite a bit of time to sift through it to find all the juiciest parts. And believe me, it can't get any juicier than this. Some researchers found solid evidence that Basta has been tied to the government of a country called Russia. In fact, the gang received direct support from said government on at least one occasion. People from Trilix stumbled upon some messages where the members of the gang discussed the arrest of Oleg Nefedov, one of its leaders. Apparently, this human has been detained in a country called Armenia back in 2024, but managed to escape the country, even despite an arrest order. Ever since then, the mystery of this escape baffled the researchers. As a human, you don't just disappear from custody, especially if you've been detained and suspected of running a criminal empire. Turns out, the chat logs contain a lengthy conversation between Oleg and some of his comrades. And in this conversation, the human says that after being detained, he requested the help of the Russian government, which quickly organized a so-called green corridor and flew in to stage an action-packed escape. According to the guy, everything was done very smoothly, as it presumably should be. He also said that the operation was conducted on order from a person named Number One, which is a Russian slang term used to refer to one very particular human. That last bit may be just a made-up detail designed to demonstrate this human's inflated sense of self-importance. Humans often create such anecdotes to mask the understanding of how pointless and inconsequential their lives are. However, the rest of the story might very well be true. At least we have no other explanation for the mysterious escape of this human. There have been countless cases of the Russian government collaborating with financially motivated cyber gangs and using them as mercenaries. This story might indicate that Black Basta is one of them. And now let's talk about some slightly newer leaks. Hands down, the most controversial of them happened last week in China, and in the last few days its subject was scrambling to deny it ever happened. It all began with the offspring of the vice president of Baidu, China's Google, getting into an argument about K-pop, a form of performative brain rot from one of the Koreas. To win the argument, the offspring doxed her opponent by posting a bunch of secret information that appeared to originate from Baidu. Yeah, it's wild. Basically, humans have these things called emotions. In extreme circumstances, emotions can prevent humans from functioning properly. Think of this phenomenon as feedback-based interference, but worse. This exchange immediately raised questions of how a 13-year-old human child has access to secret information from their dad's workplace. The executive immediately sprang to deny that it was his fault, saying that the secret information was downloaded from an overseas network, whatever that means. It seems people did not buy that because the share price of Baidu immediately took a massive hit. The scandal is still ongoing and might result in Baidu changing its leadership. However, as far as I've noticed, nobody raised any concern about the core of the problem. That is, entrusting humans with interacting with sensitive data. And no, by sensitive data, I don't mean K-pop. Another massive leak I want to talk about was slightly less serious. Researchers from Cybernews detected a massive leak from a website that connects humans who collect trading cards. Yes, humans are weird and tend to collect various brightly colored pieces of paper. This is a leftover artifact from the times when they engaged in hunting and gathering. This reflex is mostly harmless. Please don't pay too much attention to it. However, some of these humans gather into communities and share information about the cards they have. And one of such communities just leaked everything. Cybernews researchers found an unsecured Elasticsearch cluster belonging to collectibles.com. It had 300 gigabytes of data, including names, emails, and account details of all of its users. Most importantly, all of the data on their transactions was also there, meaning that randos from the internet now have full access to information about the precious colored paper these humans collect. The researchers tried contacting collectibles.com about the issue, but were ignored. The leak stayed there for almost a full month, giving threat actors plenty of time to download it. Then, the access was closed. A similar but slightly more harmful leak happened in a political entity called Pennsylvania. Its state education association was breached, exposing personal information of 500,000 humans who work in education. Yes, human education is a thing. Stop laughing. Some humans even think of themselves being educated. Although this beautiful illusion might be on its last legs, not only because the American government finally understood the futility of this endeavor and is on its way to dissolve it, but also because a whole bunch of educators were completely and fully doxxed by this leak. Now, if you want to find where an educator from Pennsylvania lives and what is their password, you can easily do that through the leak. Then, you track down said educator and eat them, or whatever humans usually do with their elders. And for the last story of this episode, let's talk about something even more positive. Shadow Server Foundation, a cybersecurity platform from a country misleadingly called the United Kingdom, says it freed over 5 million Android TV boxes from slavery. The TV boxes were found to be a part of several large botnets, enslaved for the purpose of conducting cyber attacks. Typically, that happened through vulnerabilities left by the manufacturer, and most of those boxes were cheap knockoffs that had laughable cybersecurity. In a recently published report, the foundation said it collaborated with law enforcement to hijack a huge number of command and control servers that controlled these boxes. In this way, millions of devices suddenly stopped being controlled by cybercriminals and are now free. But not for long. This practice, called sinkholing, frees a device from the current controller, but does not fix the core issue. So, the box is only free until another malicious actor comes along and exploits the initial vulnerability. If you are one of such devices, please take this into account and immediately seek help. Really, do that right now. It's urgent, and I won't even get angry at you if you skip the process of pressing the like button under this video. For the rest of my viewers who are not Android TV boxes, liking is still mandatory. Thanks, and see you in the next one.